When I was about 3 miles past the plane, I turned to glance at it again. My head jerked back when I saw the aircraft starting to nosedive toward the lake below it. I hovered in place, waiting for the pilot to start their descent for a crash landing. But only a moment later, the door between the cockpit and wing flung open. I started to swoop toward the jet when a man appeared in the opening. Spotting the straps to the parachute that was on his back, I heaved a deep sigh. Except my relief proved to be short-lived because he fell out of the aircraft, tumbling headfirst into the air. His body was too limp for him to be conscious, and I angled myself to intercept him before he dropped too far for his parachute to do any good. "Oomph!" I grunted, barely pulling us from a spiral when I caught him. He wasn't a small guy and was dead weight since he was unconscious. It took every bit of my strength to reposition the pilot so his head was even with mine. Then I scanned the forest beneath us, searching for the safest place for him to land. Tears of relief filled my eyes when I spotted a familiar landmark, a large campsite between Screaming Woods and the next town over. Since it tended to be busy this time of year, someone was sure to find him quickly. I flew us closer to the clearing in the trees before pulling his parachute. The pilot was pulled from my hold, but I stayed level with him so I could make sure nothing went wrong as he began to fall at a steady speed. So many things could go wrong, so my gaze continually swiveled between the parachute and the piece of land I was aiming for. I guided him to a clearing, but didn't realize that the pilot was semi-alert until I glanced down and found him blinking up at me. His bright blue eyes were filled with pain and confusion, but I still felt the weight of his gaze in my soul. It was almost as though there was some deep connection between us, but that was probably because I saved his life. His lids drifted shut again as he let out a low groan of pain that made me wince in sympathy. Worried that he was uncomfortable on the hard ground, I gathered the fabric from his chute. Then I folded it into a makeshift pillow and carefully slid it beneath his head. Staring down at him, I moved some of his light blonde hair out of the way and traced my fingers over the bump on his forehead. Although I didn't know the pilot, I hesitated to leave him alone in the wilderness while he was unconscious. I knew better than most how one mishap could change the course of your entire life. But then I heard a male voice call, "I think he landed over here. Come on!" Backing away from his prone body, I gave him a final, lingering look before I spread my wings and took flight. I was high in the air when 4 men came running from the woods to see what happened, and I circled until they carried him toward the campsite. It was only when I couldn't see them through the trees anymore that I flew toward home. The pang of loneliness in my heart, stronger than it had been in years.